7 o'clock, and this is the Finance Committee meeting of 26 March 2015. This meeting is being televised live by Chelmsford Telemedia and is being recorded for future broadcast. Request if there are any visual or audio recording devices being used, please identify yourself. There being none. Tonight we will follow the published agenda, which pertains to the FY16 town budget for the library, the health department, and the school district. We request that all questions or comments be held until we reach that point in our agenda. During that time, please keep your questions and comments to the items discussed during the meeting, and please limit your questions and comments. Okay, the first up tonight, I believe, is going to be the library, and Becky Herman.
Hi.
Good evening, Becky. Your name, sir?
David Braslow. I'm the treasurer of the library trustees.
David, thank you very much for coming.
Could we just go around?
Sure, we'll tell you who we are, and go ahead.
Sheila Pichette.
Strider Kakis. Jim Clancy.
Tom Gilroy.
Kathy Duffett.
Margarita Galiviotis.
Pam Morris. Sorry.
It's okay.
Thanks for having us. I hope people have their little packets. I have one or two extras if people need it, but it's a fairly straightforward request. I'm presenting a budget with an overall increase of 2.9%. The general expenses have been slightly decreased. The materials are level funded, and the increase is primarily due to union negotiated step cost of living raises and longevity increases for staff. As part of this budget is we're completing the transition of an existing adult services, readers services librarian position from state aid to the town's operating budget. This was a phased-in plan that we did in conjunction with the trustees and with the town manager, and we had originally presented the position back in FY14 budget, and I had actually brought it to the Finance Committee at that time too. And then the trustees committed to fund the position through state aid and as sort of a stopgap measure until we slowly built it into the municipal budget. So the first year that we had the position, the full year was funded by state aid. The second year, we did a shared thing between state aid and some that was put into the budget. And then in this request, we've integrated entirely into the municipal budget. So we were really in a good position to be able to do that this year because we had some attrition, we had a creative reassignment of duties, some belt tightening, and then we did some schedule changes. But it is not a new position, it's an existing position that we've had for 3 years that we've just been committed to funding some through the state aid. Part of the reason for putting some of these positions back into the budget is that back in 2002 we had our full-time equivalents at that point were 28.13. At this point we are, even with this position, we're at 24.91, so we're still 3 full-time positions below where we were back in 2002. And the hard thing about that is that in 2002 our circulation was about 490,000 books and we're over 500,000 now, so we're circulating more materials with fewer staff members. And then part of the decision to try to integrate it into the budget is that, we've been using state aid for myriad reasons. State aid is for people that are new on the board. I actually have a fun little handout that I can give you. But we have state aid that comes, I don't know if anybody wants these, but we can pass them around. Yeah. But this is a handout that the state does for municipal officials, and it kind of does a breakdown and gives you the reasons why we need to be funded at the state aid level, which I did include in my packet. There's requirements that have to do with hours open, certified librarian, materials expenditure, overall budget increases. And so this gives you some more details, so if you want to...
And these funds are available annually, are they?
Yes, they are. So I figured I'd give you that, and then if you have more questions afterwards, then you can shoot me an email, or I can give you some more details. But each year, we get these funds, and unfortunately, the amount of money that we've been getting has actually decreased rather than increasing. Back in 2009 was probably the high that we had. It was about $59,256. This past year, we're down $20,000. It's $39,926 is what we received. So, you know, we're constantly having to make up ground, and using state aid, we use it not only for the personnel issues that we needed to do, but we also, at one time, used it for our Sunday hours before they were in the budget. We have used it for building updates and repairs, HVAC problems that we've had as the building has aged. Parts are just going all at the same time.
Just like at home.
That's right. We use it for, we're in the middle of a web page redesign, and state aid is paying for that. We don't have any budget anymore. Back in 2008, we didn't have a budget anymore for staff education or travel expenses, mileage. None of those are included in my budget at this point, so those are paid out of state aid. And then back in 2008, the trustees also committed to using a certain amount of money for subbing, because that was also taken out of my budget at that time. So every time we have somebody who goes, we had 6 weeks this year where we had somebody who had a hip replacement, somebody else who had long-term illness, and then we need to replace with people, and so we spend the money out of that for them.
And we've consistently spent, for the last 5 years, more out of our state aid budget than has been replenished by the state. So, you know, we've gotten to the point where the withdrawals are worrisome, and that we can't keep up with it.
So, you know, it's actually been sort of interesting looking back at that 10-year perspective and seeing how much money we had been spending. The funds have significantly increased in that back in 2004, we had used for outside sources beside the municipal budget, we'd done a total of $98,251. And that was using funding from the Friends of the Library, money from state aid, our trust funds, our gift book funds, all the endowment, all of those things. So it's $98,000 in 2004, and in 2014 we spent almost $135,000. So it's
How much do you get from the Friends of the Library every year?
every year I put in a request, and it averages about $40,000.
Really?
Yeah, and what that does is, we don't, again, have any municipal budget for programming.
Right.
So that means every time that we have a puppeteer, or a storyteller, or a speaker, or our one-book program, that's completely funded by the Friends, which is amazing. They're wonderful. I mean, I feel like we're able to do so much at the library because of their generosity, and that's all volunteers, you know, so they're terrific. So, yeah, so we just have been, you know, we don't want to rob Peter to pay Paul, I mean, as far as the state aid is concerned. And so the other thing that's been really wonderful is that the town, a couple of years ago, 4 years ago, when we went below our state aid certification level, and the town really worked with us to get us a waiver and then to restore our funding back to that state aid level. And as you'll see in the little brochure about what that means, why we want to keep at the state aid level, it isn't just the money that we get. You know, it's nice to get that $40,000, but it also is the reciprocal borrowing. So, in other words, if any of you use the library and you request a book, then you are constantly having a book that comes from another library. It also means that you can go with your library card to any one of those 35 libraries and use it. If you are not certified, then we are not allowed to do that. So then you end up being a standalone library operating without even access to the catalog that MVLC would have.
Exactly what are the requirements for certification? I mean, if, you know, a summary, I know it's...
Right, it's...
obviously, education and training and all that.
It's, yes, I can remember. It's an average, your budget has to be a 3-year average of the last 3 years plus 2.5%. So you have to continually be increasing.
Right.
You have to have a certified library director. You have to be open a certain amount of hours. In our case, we have to be open 59, and we're open 62. So we're able to do that. And then your materials budget has to be a certain percentage based on your population and your budget. In our case, it's 13%. Is that right? Anything else in there that I forgot?
Nope.
Good. Thank you very much.
But yeah, so otherwise, I mean, I guess the other things to just sort of highlight is that, you know, we are extremely busy at the library. You know, anyone who's tried to find a parking space on one of the mornings that we're doing story time knows what that feels like. And, you know, people are still using the library. We have a people counter that, you know, tracks how many people come in, and our visits actually, this past year were 245,845 visits in a year. So that averages to 856 people a day.
Every day,
Yeah, which is amazing when you think about it. And, you know, and they're not all coming in and checking out books, but they're coming in and they're using all of our electronic services. They're using the Wi-Fi, they are using all of the databases, they are coming to programs.
That's not even counting the folks that are dropping off books at the drop-off outside, right?
Exactly,
Or the
exactly.
people who are parked in the parking lot before
Using the
or after hours using the Wi-Fi, which they do.
They do.
Great idea.
They're out there they're plugging in their electric car to get it recharged.
Well, that gets used all the time. We're actually,
I believe that this weekend you're starting the collection for the books, right?
we're going to do some book collecting
You
for
want
the
to give a
friends.
little plug for that? And
Sure,
and
absolutely.
also where to go with them? And
I will. I just,
About the house that's being finally torn down next door and all that?
before I do that, I just want to hand out my little brochures to highlight the e-content that we have. So if you are not aware, we have downloadable magazines, we have downloadable music. You can, with your library card, you can download 5 songs per week for yourself, for your own device. We also have something called Hoopla, which you can download movies and music. We have Safari computer books, which are also available as a database. And those are all the most current things, so that we don't actually purchase those computer books anymore. We do some of them, but they get out of date so quickly that Safari is the thing that provides that. So that's just a little handy thing. And as long as you have a library card, then you'll be able to do that.
Well, I must tell you that my grandchildren who live up in New Hampshire, they love this library. Every time they come down for the weekend, they have to go to the library. They love it down there. They have a great time, and the things to do and the books to read. They're very happy there.
Well, I
And Maureen
appreciate hearing
takes-
that.
Maureen takes good care of
excellent
them.
care of them, absolutely.
Facility.
You mentioned the book sale. Yeah, the Friends are actually having a spring book sale this year, too. So it is, I actually have some bookmarks if you want, but it's Saturday and Sunday, April 11th and 12th. So we want to encourage people to come down for that. And again, as I said, all of the money that the Friends make goes to fund all the programs at the library. So it's really critical that we get some.
And the books are being dropped off at the top?
They're going to be, we're going to do
Here.
the drop-up here this weekend, yeah.
Okay.
And so that's, anything else that I was?
No, I think the only other stat that was really interesting, right, you were talking about the number of visitors, right, is the number of transactions. When we went back and looked through all the numbers, right,
It must be a staggering number, too.
it works out to be 2.5 transactions per
Per
minute
minute.
that the library
That's how busy we are.
Busy place.
Is that, I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry. I was just wondering if you could highlight the hours in the North Chelmsford
Sure,
library for
they're open,
folks at
they're open
home.
Monday, Wednesday, and Friday now. And so that's 1 to 5 on Monday, and it's 12 to 8 on Wednesday, and then it's 10 to 5 on Friday. And that Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule is working well for us to be able to integrate it with the interlibrary loan that we do, so that we can still have access to all those materials even though we're closed, so.
And from a staffing perspective, that's worked out very well
It
as well.
has, yeah, no, it just gives us a lot more options to be able to fill when people are not available.
Thank you very much.
Can I
Appreciate
just ask
your
a couple
time.
things?
Sure.
The collaboration between all of the libraries and the towns that you have the collaboration with, in my mind, that's supposed to save money for the state. Does that actually
Does that
achieve that?
translate into savings? Yeah, we get a sort of a, if you were a standalone library, they give us statistics on how that would play out. And I mean, for us in particular, I mean, individual communities, it for sure saves us money, because if we were paying for all those services ourselves,
Right.
then it would be very costly. And then what we do is there's a lot of aggregate purchases that we do, so that we're doing databases that are all done as a consortium. We have statewide databases that are also done. We do collection development, where we have an actual committee that actually looks at what are the strengths and weaknesses of each library and tries to purchase things to that end. So there's a lot of collaboration, and I think it does translate into a cost savings.
Right.
The delivery service itself that goes around to the different libraries, that's an immense cost sharing, cost savings if you were to try to do that individually. So,
And how many crates of books typically?
we get probably about 11 or 12 bins a day.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of material.
Yeah, and we've had days where we've gotten as many as 21.
Right.
I mean, higher than, so I was just doing an average.
And that brings to light something that I heard on the radio, I think it was yesterday. It was a study shown how do all these new devices affect very young children. And they said that it didn't take away from their learning, but the thing that really added to the child's learning was what we all know is the one-on-one interaction between the parent and the child and how they bring the children along. And the library is such a perfect example and such a perfect, assistance to help a family bring up their child on a one-to-one basis. Very wonderful.
Part of the core, mission of what we do is a preschool door to learning and, early childhood education too. So.
Thank you.
You do an amazing job.
Right,
I know my kids love it.
thank you very much.
Anything else? If you have any other
All
further
set.
questions, just shoot us an
We'll
email
Shoot
and
you an email, sure.
we'll be happy to respond.
Absolutely.
That's one of those things we like to do as librarians, is answer questions.
Okay, good.
What's the one book?
Oh, actually, you know what? I still had a few books left. We just had our,
This happened to him.
I just happened to have. We did Chris Bajalian's book, The Sandcastle Girls, and we actually had him last Thursday night, which I guess none of you would have been able to attend, right? Because you probably were busy with a meeting, but
My wife wants to read this.
we had about 200 people that came to the McCarthy School, which was a really wonderful turnout for a Thursday night when it was freezing cold. And he did a really fun presentation, not fun, but I mean powerful presentation. The book actually is about the Armenian genocide, and it is the 100th anniversary of that this April. And so it was actually
We just talked about that.
yeah, very timely, and we've had a lot of programs related to it, and actually there are a couple more programs still coming up. So if you go to our website, chelmsfordlibrary.org, then and then click on programs, then you'll be able to see that there's the calendar will show all of those things.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, next, we have the Health Department and Richard Day. And I'm sorry, but I forgot your name from... Sue Rosie, yes. There's all the statistics and data and everything.
Not as many this year.
So, good, it's good.
Do you have the budget handouts?
I don't think I have anything.
Okay, all right.
Oh, yes, I do, I'm sorry.
I made copies, Richard.
I do, I have them
I
right
made
here.
copies for everybody.
Sorry.
You're welcome.
No, actually, I just wanted to look at it to see which one it was, because Paul, John and I met about a month ago, and there was some, bottom line, there was just some minor little tweaks
It's okay.
not in the salary side, but only in the little minor 21,000 plus expense side, which is,
It's only money, right?
it's only money. So if you want, I can give her the,
Yeah, well, you give it to Pam, sure.
Okay.
So we want her to have the right numbers.
exactly.
So they're in the minutes, correct?
Exactly. So, I guess basically, from last time we were here, and Sue can speak on this in regards to probably the only change we've had in an awful lot of years, where we added in cooperations with the school,
Yeah.
the health educator
Yes, I
position.
remember talking about that last year. Yes.
And,
Good idea, right?
she can kind of fill you in on where things have been on that it's money well spent and whatever. And the rest of the budget, I think, is pretty simplistic in the fact that it's just straight,
Vanilla, huh?
yeah, it's just straight steps, kinds of things and changes.
No
There's-
significant increases?
No. I mean, really, the only increase that really occurred is that one more of the employees finally qualified for longevity. While there was only 3 before, now there's 4 that have qualified. Well, time,
Good, that's good.
well, experienced staff,
Experience,
right,
right.
brings you
Must like their job, right?
exactly.
It's important.
Exactly, to where you want to go. So, from the money side, I think it's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Nothing standing out, and,
Okay, that's good. Sue can give us some statistics, she's always good with that.
yes, oh, yes, no.
I'll have to
I
ask-
don't have quite as
I'll have to
many
ask-
this year.
No, not as many as last time.
No,
No, definitely not as many.
No,
I had to
I-
really convince you last year.
I talked to the chief about this, and I know that it's an issue, and I know that there's an opiate problem in the state, and we have our own problems in town. And how do you How do you see this in your position as a nurse,
You know,
health department nurse?
one of the reasons why I was really so assertive last year with my statistics and everything was because we were in the midst of an opiate epidemic. We still are in the midst of an opiate epidemic. You read every single day about the overdoses that we're having, and Chelmsford is no different than any other community in that we are affected just as much as every other community. I didn't make enough copies for everybody, but this is just a summary of some of the things that we have done with Jackie since she was brought on board last year. You're probably all aware of the fact that we had our Substance Abuse Awareness Week last October. Within that, we did a remembrance vigil, the overdose vigil.
Yes, yeah.
And we were not the first city or town to do an overdose vigil. However, for our first overdose vigil, we had more people than every other city or town combined.
That's wonderful.
Yes, we had
Now, was that because of the
It could have been the speaker.
Who was the speaker?
Our speaker was a police officer on our force who
Really?
lost a child, Brian Mullen.
Oh, yes,
who
oh, yeah, I know
lost his
Brian.
child a couple years ago.
I know Brian very well, yes.
And Brian and his wife spoke at our vigil and shared their story about, the
Sure.
fact that
Oh, yeah.
addiction doesn't discriminate and that type of thing. So we had a very high turnout that evening.
Great, wonderful.
We also brought in programs to the school. We had John Morello's Dirt. We had Brain Drain in the middle school. We collaborated with the school department, and they actually paid to bring that in. I was able to secure 2 grants from the Greater Lowell Health Alliance, one for $7,500, another one for $6,600, that was able to pay for a program that we brought into the high school, as well as community-wide programs. In addition to that, we were able to provide a Breaking Free from Depression program, which Jackie, our new health educator, heard about, approached the schools with it. The guidance department, as well as the health education teachers, went and received training, and they are either currently giving the program to the 9th grade students in their health classes, or they've just completed that series. So that's been completed. We were able to, with that funding, we actually started a monthly educational series at the library. We collaborated with them. We purchased several books on substance abuse resources for our public library to have. And we've had a program on current trends in substance abuse. We had a program on healthy eating, because it's not just all about substance abuse,
sure.
it's about general health. We had a program on internet safety. One of our guidance counselors at the high school did that for us. And we have a program coming up April 15th, which we're able to pay through this grant as well, and it's called the PrEP program, and it's Parenting Resources, Education, and Prevention for Substance Abuse. So I think in the short period of time that we've had Jackie's position between the school department and the health department, we've accomplished a lot
That's great.
in that she's only been here since July.
Money well spent.
Yes, and I really appreciate and hope that it will be money well spent continued.
Well, we thank you too for what you do, because obviously it's,
Thank you, thank you.
and
I-
Richard as well.
I wouldn't be able to do it without his support, so, and actually, this couldn't have been better timing, knowing I was coming to this
Right,
meeting
right.
today. Chelmsford Independent today has a
really?
huge article. Town takes aim at drug abuse, and it takes up a good portion of the whole paper. And John Rourke, from our police department,
Yes,
talks about the challenges of substance abuse.
Great.
He names Jackie, he names me, he names the Tyroses, who
Yeah,
play an
right.
important part.
Yeah,
And then, in addition to that article, there's a second article about how difficult it is for addicts to navigate the whole system to get treatment.
yeah, and I just, you probably know this, but when the chief was here last week, he mentioned that one of his goals is to get a full-time police officer in the schools, and he
resource
said he'd
officer.
pay for it in his budget, so
Yeah.
that's a good thing. I think that would be helpful. I know the Tyroses do a great job.
They do,
They're only there, I think, 20 hours, right?
right,
Yeah. so-
right. And interesting, we had there was a meeting because one of the committees I'm on is a collaborative, and it's actually called, it's a grant from the federal government, and Chelmsford, signed on to this grant. It's called the Massachusetts Opiate Abuse Prevention Collaborative, and it's 7 cities and towns in this area. And basically, we actually had a meeting today with all of the police officers within all those cities and towns, basically saying, we now have Narcan. Narcan has been tremendous
Big
at saving
lifesaver, right,
lives. There are some issues that some people bring up about, the Good Samaritan law, because people think, the officer came, they saved your life,
yeah.
now they can't ask me any questions. Well, yes, they can. So there was just some clarity in how we can work together to continue our prevention efforts. One of the topics that came up repeatedly in this meeting was education and prevention in the schools, and the fact that we have to start at younger ages. We can't wait till high school, because unfortunately, by that time, sometimes it's too late.
Kind of sad, but true.
But it was a great meeting to have everybody in the room together from all the different towns, and knowing that everybody wants to work on it at the same time. So it's, that whole group is a great group to belong to, and we're trying to get it done. And the other thing that's really good in talking to Becky and George, because they're, involved in the school, is that our opiate use as far as pills is down. It has decreased, not by a ton, but it is gone down, so it's going in the right direction, which supports what we're doing.
Can I ask a couple of questions on the budget? It says full-time. Is that one person or how many on that?
Only
There's
two,
two.
Rich
There's
and
two.
Mark.
There's two individuals, myself and my food inspector.
Okay, there's 2 people make up the 157?
Correct.
Okay. And on the part-time, how many part-timers are there?
Well, there's 3.
Huh?
3.
3?
I'm 30 hours, Jackie's 30 hours, Carol's 30 hours.
You're on the part-time?
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay.
although it's really more like 50 or 60, but
But at the full-time, there's 2 full?
I get paid.
Full-time?
Correct.
40 hours?
Full-time, yes, 37 and a half.
37 and a half?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, correct.
Okay. And and longevity. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We
Can I
appreciate it.
ask a little question about,
Absolutely, yeah.
so other than, what about alcohol abuse, programs to identify it? Right.
Alcohol is also addressed. It's not, we don't just focus on opiates. In fact, the program that we did for the 7th and 8th graders this year, it was called Brain Drain. And it was a program that we brought in from outside, and it focused on alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana. That was the big focus. And it was an interactive program that we did in small groups of about 50 students, so that it would be interactive, and basically showing the importance of that, because alcohol is a huge problem. The other thing one of the things that has increased as far as the alcohol is the binge drinking. Because kids don't understand what binge drinking is,
How do you capture that data?
Through the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. That's actually done every 2 years within the school. So the last one, there was a big one done, the entire high school, 2012. And then they just do another one this year. I believe they just completed another one.
This is all done anonymously.
Yes,
Now,
yes.
how truthful do you feel? What percentage do you think of it is really telling the truth?
I think the fact that the students they know that but they're not, their name's
Yeah.
not on it, it's done in, I think it's Plus Block that they do the survey. So I think that most of them
accurate,
are
then.
pretty accurate. The only thing and I find every time I read the results of the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, and I look at the percentage of kids who say that their parents never spoke to them about sex or, using protection and all that stuff. And it's a pretty high percentage that kids say their parents never spoke to them about it. And I sit there and there's that part of me that says, that blows my mind.
Yeah.
And then there's that other part of me that says, I've had 4 kids, and how many times do you talk to them about stuff and they don't always hear, or they're not going to admit that you ever mentioned it?
They haven't turned the receipt button on.
Yeah, so I think that we use, and the good thing about that is Jackie just in the short time she's been here, was able to look at the results of the last survey that we had. The state did a very small one in 2013, but it was only a couple of hundred kids, so you can't really make judgments on that. But the changes to the curriculum that happened within the health teachers, Jackie highlighted those, handed them to the health education teachers, and they said, okay, they'll tweak this, that, and they'll change their curriculum according to that. And tomorrow, we're actually doing a school-based wellness fair.
Really?
So we coordinated, Jackie and I coordinated with the health curriculum coordinator, Katie Sims, and we've got 21 or 22 vendors coming to the high school tomorrow. They'll be there from 7:30 to 2.
Fantastic.
And the kids will just funnel through and learn about all different things.
Good, very good, that's great.
To add to that, just, the board has just recently passed, just so you to know, a local regulation in regards to medical marijuana.
Board, which board?
Board of
The Board of Health has
Board of Health.
passed a local regulation in relationship to medical
Medical
marijuana. The state law that they put into play, that they really haven't figured out how to do with it yet, okay? We see a lot of problems with it, and we weren't going to wait until after the fact to, what we call, plug the holes.
You're being
So,
proactive.
proactive in regards to a regulation that's just not going to allow anybody to, not just that have a dispensary here, but all the accessory
Paraphernalia?
paraphernalia and caregivers and other kinds of things that are related to
I mean, I
this
can't buy a
regulation.
hokey pipe if I want, no?
No, actually you can't. So, just wanted to let you know that we have put that into effect, and that, while most communities have not. So however this whole thing finally plays out, and where it may be going, is another issue.
Since we're gonna have a distributor on our border, right?
Right on the border.
Right
Yeah.
on-
The
right in
the
our
idea is,
backyard.
yes, the idea is that we do have a regulation that's gonna
Yeah.
fill a lot of the holes that may pop up. Maybe they never will, but I think a lot of parties are gonna see that Chelmsford has the regs in place, and they can't play that game that they've moved into a community, and there's no regulations, so therefore they should be able to do anything they want.
Well, you know, I think what's happened, this is my personal opinion, of course, but, you know, the kids see what's happening with the lessening of the restrictions on marijuana, and they think, oh, yeah, hey, this is okay now, so we can go out there and smoke all the pot we want. Well, you know, it's still,
And it
there's
makes
still a
it-
federal law against it, number one. They haven't changed that yet, so, but,
I'm sorry.
I
Okay.
kind of wanted to switch topics since I'm not familiar with the food inspection process.
Yes.
Could you just give a small tangent on how
Sure.
that works, how often the restaurants are checked?
Well, basically, the restaurants are done minimum 2 times a year, all restaurants. The obvious issue is we try to weight that a little bit to the good ones that have always been good and consistently good. You may not go by as often, while the others that you have some issues with, you will go by more often. Therefore, you always are weighting it to what I call the roller coaster facilities, where they're good, then they're bad, then they're good, then they're bad. We like good straight across the board. If you go like, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years in a row, and there's always really nothing. Basically, some little minor kinds of things, but there's basically nothing. Do you spend a lot of time? Yes, you gotta go, but the idea is that do you spend 2 hours there, 3 hours there?
Right.
Or do you just go, yeah, same thing, everything's great, okay, let's move on, go to the next one. And then you get the other places and it's like, oh, here we go again, and kind of thing. So, yeah, so food service again, and plus there's a pretty consistent turnover, regretfully, in the food industry. They come and they go, and therefore you gotta deal with what I call the new facilities opening up, but also too, you gotta deal with what I call a fading facility that's trying to stay afloat, and they're kind of cutting edges, I guess you want to call it, and you don't want them to cut their edges. If you can't do what you need to do, then maybe you don't continue to do it. We're not going to allow you to just start cutting edges everywhere because you have some financial issues, kind of thing, so. Overall.
Thanks, Ken. Any
Thank
more?
you.
And I'd like to thank her for the first time by to, great chat.
Thank you for all the education. I knew half of the stuff that you told me that morning.
I didn't browbeat her too much, so. All right.
Just one question
Yes.
about the advertisement, the increase in the newspaper advertisement, is that for the programs that you have?
Well, that and the requirement, like the medical marijuana one,
Right.
which is pages and pages and pages, costs you a huge amount of money to put it in.
Okay.
And that really is kind of, at least in that line I'm in, kind of has
Right.
broke the budget. But again, the issue is usually we just got these routine kinds of things that we're putting in and whatever, and it, the price is kind of controllable. But the idea was we weren't going to let it go by and not create a reg on this medical marijuana, because we don't believe the state is really doing the job that they should have been doing to handle this thing, and we don't want to be the place where it's tried and fails here.
Thank
So
you.
therefore, we're gonna have something in place. Yes, it costs a little bit to put it in there and advertise it like the state requires us to do, but
Have to do it.
have to do it, kind of thing, so.
Okay, great.
Very
All
good.
right.
Well,
All right.
thank you
Thank you
very
again.
much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Oops.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have the school district, Dr. Tiano. Frank is, Frank Antonelli, yeah?
Fine, thanks.
You got anything good in there?
Thank you.
Pam, have one?
Tom, are the school committee members going to join?
No, they can sit back there. That's the way,
I have
that's what we've done in the past.
Okay, okay, because I do have some questions directly.
But they can, if they can add to the answers, then they can do so.
Sure.
Is that okay with you?
It's okay with
Do you want them sitting? I mean, they can sit up here if they want, there's no microphones, but, you know, they can, I don't want to, but they're here, so, you know. I didn't realize it was going to be a joint meeting, but they were invited. Okay, just a couple of opening comments, all right? I got today an email that had some unpaid bills from 2013 and 2014. Not a lot of money, only about $7,000 or $8,000, but what I'm wondering is, where are they coming from? And can we expect any more? I mean, you know, this thing's to be a kind of, there was a big area, big period of time we had none, and all of a sudden now we got this, under somebody's desk, or where were they?
Frank's prepared to speak.
Okay, good, all right.
No, they weren't under anyone's desk. Most of those expenses related to utilities,
Yeah, I
and
saw that, yeah.
they were given to the town accountant after the town meeting, and she passed them along to me, so we said we had to get them approved at the town meeting.
Okay, so
So-
this next town meeting,
Yes, this
They'll be-
town meeting
they'll be
that
on
we
there.
have coming up. And
Okay.
then there were a couple of other expenses. One was a payroll expense, and someone had not submitted the paperwork necessary in order to get paid, even though she was asked, and a couple of other miscellaneous expenses.
okay, so,
I hope we don't get any more. I would expect that we don't get any more at this late date.
they'll raise the ire of the town meeting reps, you know, that's all they need, it's like raw meat.
Yeah, well, any bill that we have in the office, we have put up for payment on the town warrant in
All
the
right.
process.
Okay.
But do you have any idea where it's going to come from? What a line item of the town?
I don't, they're unpaid bills,
Bills, so they have to
so
be
they
paid.
would,
Right, but where
But,
from?
Well, Paul's, what's gonna be in warrant item 3, is it, Paul?
It'll need 4/5 vote too, correct?
Yeah. Well,
So what is that going to take away from?
Probably gonna come from the stabilization.
Stabilization fund, yeah.
Because we don't have any free cash, we put all the free cash in the stabilization back in the fall, the balance. And we don't have any availability under the levy, so it'll come from the stabilization fund, which will have the same 4/5 vote anyway.
The total like
$7,900, I think it is.
I know,
That's
but
right.
it's
I know,
on top
I know.
of everything
I know,
else.
it is, right. But, okay. All right, so why don't we,
I don't think that's all right.
well, it isn't all right, but, it is what it is. We have to, there's no magic bullet here. We have to recognize it, and it's going to have to be paid out of the stabilization fund. I don't know if there's any other place we can take it from. I mean, it's,
Is the Finance Committee reserve fund, is it, I don't think it's exhausted, but I don't know why we would pay that.
I don't
Through it,
think we
through
can do
that.
it. I think the law says that that's got to be done 15 days after the end of the fiscal year, is it not? Something like that?
Well, you're talking about two different things here. I think we're talking, if you're talking about the reserve fund, that doesn't have to be that doesn't have a time period,
Yeah.
but it has to be an emergency or
Yeah.
Unforeseen.
Right.
And I don't.
This is unforeseen.
This isn't unforeseen, and it's not an emergency.
Well, they didn't know that they had this until when?
But they aren't new bills.
After the town meeting.
But they're old bills.
It's after town
They go
meeting.
back to 2013 and 14.
But why didn't we hear about it earlier than now?
Well-
Mr. Tiano, why didn't we hear about this before tonight? I mean, $7,000, $8,000 is an additional amount. I don't care what we're talking about, it's an additional amount to all of the money that town appropriated. And I should be calm, and I should be thankful that our town manager can ask the town representatives to take it out of stabilization fund, but it doesn't make me feel any better. And I, as a finance committee, am approached with this additional funding, and I think I have a right to ask these questions because it affects everybody in the town. Even though it's a small item, to me, it's a large item, because anything right now coming from the schools, to me, or any other place, I mean, we're trying to balance a budget in April for fiscal year 16. That's very, very high in our priority, I think. And then we get these additional unpaid bills for fiscal year 14. That's not fiscal year 15, that's fiscal year 14.
And 13.
And 13.
And I can't just remain calm about it. I'm sorry, but
And you have every right to ask. And in terms of getting that information right after November town meeting, Frank's been communicating with the town side in terms of preparing this for the warrant for spring town meeting. Frank, I'm not sure when the additional bills came in.
The town accountant and I meet on a monthly basis, and right after town meeting, she presented the bills to me. Someone had contacted her and said, these are unpaid bills. And so we discussed that, and we said, okay, what we have to do is bring these up at your spring town meeting in order to get approval. There's no other mechanism to pay those
I have a
bills.
question. Was this brought to the attention of the school committee? Did they know about it?
I have mentioned to the school committee
Unpaid bills,
that there were some unpaid bills, and recently, very recently, within the past few weeks, we received one of those unpaid bills, which was for $168, I believe.
That's the student.
That's right. I don't have that information right in front of me, but that was a recent,
But it kind of worries me that the utility bills especially, the two bills, I think the two largest bills were the one to Hess.
that's
I
right.
believe they were, they were significant, and they were some time ago. I mean, they were for, I think, what are they, for natural gas, were they for gas or something, or?
Yes,
Some
yeah.
utility?
I didn't know we were going to be
It's a-
talking about them, or I would have
Well, I'm
brought
sorry, but I
copies,
mean,
yeah.
I just got that email today, and I was, like Sheila, I was kind of astounded that, you just look, if you had given them to Diane Lucier back then, I think that, somebody should have notified us so that we knew they were coming, because, there's enough other things to talk about rather than having some additional unpaid bills, because, as I said, as soon as you mention that at town meeting, it's gonna erupt. I know it is.
it sounds like the exact same thing that happened before.
Yeah.
Dr. Tiano, when did you know that we had an additional $7,000, $8,000? When did you know that there was hundreds of thousands of dollars that you would need? It's just like the same thing happening over again, and that, to me, is wrong.
Actually, I wouldn't say it's the same thing happening over. I'd say that this
Okay.
is still part of
Okay.
that mess that we've been dealing with. And as we shared with you folks individually and collectively, putting together this budget right here, it's been like a ball of string. And we've been untangling it and creating new line items. And so I believe these are part of some of those other bills that were lost with not having the checks and balances that you need, not having the right accounting procedures in place. I don't know where they went to Hess and then didn't come back directly to us. They came to the town. As soon as they were brought to the town, we started processing them for Springtown meeting, as that was the process.
But when does a superintendent know? All these CEOs that I've worked for always know exactly where their budget is, always know where they are day to day, week to week, what their expenses are. When did you know as superintendent, as CEO of the school department, that this extra $7,000, $8,000 needed to be paid from fiscal year 14?
When those original bills came in, Frank had shared that with me. He's meeting bi-weekly with the town folks.
Right.
So they were aware, and we shared it with the school committee.
Well, when did you know that?
Was it right after that? Was it December?
It was, I don't recall exactly, but it was shortly after the town meeting, when I was in Darlene's office. We meet on a monthly basis, at least a monthly basis, and she said, these bills just came in, so I need to bring them to your attention, and we need to put them on the warrant for Springtown meeting.
So it sounds, at that time, maybe the finance committee could have been informed, just to be in the loop.
Yeah, just to be in the loop, and I mean,
Yeah.
I can't imagine you haven't got any dying notices on, especially on the Hess bills. I mean, they're significant. I mean, and there's another one there that's over $1,000 as well.
And we just went through the town manager's proposed budget, and there was nothing said about it in that. And now we learn that this is an additional money that needs to be taken out of stabilization fund, where a lot of money needs to be taken out of it anyway, from what I can see, because we gave money to the schools last year, we didn't have the free cash to bring over. If we wanted to, it may not have happened anyway, but theoretically, it could have been. So it's just all of these things are just a little bit irritating to me, and I just can't remain calm about it.
It's a timing problem here. I mean, if it's December or November, I mean, come on, guys, seriously? We should have known this a long time ago. It's not the first time we've seen you guys since November either. This isn't a new meeting. This is our review meeting before we start reviewing and recommending in our town warrant book. I mean, it's getting a little ridiculous.
And believe me, I don't want to feel like this. I don't want to feel like I have to ask these questions, but, you know, there are questions sometimes that I need to ask to make logic work. So, I'm sorry, but...
Okay, well, I think, obviously, we're concerned about that. And there's just something else I want to clarify. There have been some allegations made. I don't know if they're true or not, but by one of the candidates, that there is a no-bid contract that was given to NRT. Now, the question I have, and I know about no-bid contracts and all that, now, was there a sole source justification done with NRT, and is that why they got the no-bid contract, or is there not a no-bid contract? Do we have a bid process for them, or were they given a sole source contract because they're the only game in town? And
This is the in-town special ed transportation
$500,000,
cost
I think the
that
number
you're
is-
referring to,
Right.
approximately
Right.
$500,000 to $700,000.
Right.
And what happened is that it was bid several years ago. It was actually bid, I believe, in
Probably 7 years ago, because I was on the school committee.
2008, and it was for a 3-year period with 2 additional 1-year renewal options.
Okay.
And so the contract, I believe, expired in June of 2012. Contracts for anything dealing with special education, including transportation, are not governed by Chapter 30B of the procurement law.
Okay.
In other words, you do not have to bid this particular service because it is special education.
Okay.
That being said, we have recently gone out to bid and received and opened bids just this morning for special education out-of-district transportation. And that bid was done in collaboration with the town of Billerica as well as Tewksbury. So we will be reviewing those bids and bringing our recommendation to the respective school committees in the near future after we analyze those bids. I think that it's a prudent practice to go out and bid even though it's not required under the law because it's such a large amount of money. And so I will work with people in the business office and I guess in the business office, I was going to say the other school districts, but it's just for in-town transportation.
Now, is this currently part of the NRT contract?
NRT is the company that was awarded the contract back in 2008.
Okay, so they have this portion too that you went out.
They are currently providing the service for the in-town. As far as the out-of-town district transportation is concerned for special education, that's being provided by the Merrimack Education Center.
How many bids did you have?
Today, we had two bids.
Just
One
two.
was from the Merrimack Education Center, and the other was from Trombley, Inc., which is really it's owned by the same gentleman who owns NRT.
NRT, yeah. Okay, all right, well, that's good. You clarified that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I interrupted you can start.
No, it's
your
okay.
budget.
Folks, you have in front of you a copy of the PowerPoint that we have here. It's a few slides summarizing this binder that we have here. As you folks received this binder, it was our preliminary FY16 budget,
It's fantastic.
and it is fantastic.
Right.
And I think as frustrated as you are, Sheila, you can imagine the folks who work in the school department and the level of frustration. So in terms of going forward, and the focus right now going into FY16 with procedures in place for putting together a comprehensive budget, you ask as CEO and superintendent, how do I know where we are? Once a month, we have it down to 6+ hours going through line by line of and if we have a question about anything that's purchased, we go right into the Munis system right there on the screen. There's 6 of us, and we do that on a monthly basis. Frank will present that to the school committee. I believe our next meeting, he'll be presenting February. If you wanted to talk about a quick update regarding FY15, Frank and I'd be happy to talk about that after this presentation, and talk about numbers from January.
Excuse me?
Sure.
I am very confident. This information is very comprehensive, and you're correct. I can't imagine the detail and the time that it took, and thank you very much, Frank.
Welcome. It was my
And
pleasure.
Superintendent
it was
Tiano. So moving forward, I am extremely confident in the processes and the procedures.
Right.
Do you have
Just catching up.
a monthly report of balances in each of the accounts, encumbrances and so forth?
In the revolving accounts as well. Yes.
So you prepare a monthly statement, okay.
Yes, and in terms of looking at recommendations from the Sullivan report, perhaps you saw Chairman Rigny's
Yep.
sharing that with the selectmen.
Yep.
We've been on point. We have NASBO coming in April to go through all of our processes. By the time it's all said and done, our financial department will be as strong as every other one of our departments within the
Not
district.
to change the subject, but I think probably in that regard, we probably ought to, set up another meeting with you folks between now and the, maybe even town meeting, just to go over the budget where it is, right now.
Sure.
And then try to do it every month thereafter, and that way we'll all be up to speed and there'll be no more surprises.
No, we'd be happy to do that.
Okay, great.
And just in terms of this particular process, you folks had the preliminary FY16 budget.
Right.
And as you know, that was, $53,018,938.
Yep.
Just Tuesday night, the school committee voted to have our bottom line number be $52,400,000. That's in line with the recommendation that the town manager had made. There's a difference of $618,938. And so we had to pare down our preliminary budget, which we knew coming out of the gate we would have to. We were starting with the zero-based and seeing exactly what it costs to run our district, as well as some enhancements that we need, that are required by law, or educationally, that we felt we needed for our students. So we worked with the school committee on Tuesday, and they've agreed to the reductions that we have here. We've summarized them for you. Tom, you had asked me in terms of what does that look like, detailed within all of the
Right,
pages.
sure,
Frank's had the opportunity to do some of that preliminary work. We'll share it with the school committee first, and then
Sure.
immediately we'll be happy to share it with you as
I
well.
just want to make one interjection, just so that everybody understands what the process is here, the budget process. The budget process in the town works as follows. The department, the district, whatever, puts their budget together, it's reviewed with the town manager. It's then presented to the finance committee. The finance committee reviews it, individually and then collectively, and then we make our recommendations. The school committee, I believe, does the same thing. They review the budget with you, and they make their recommendations. They don't approve it, they make their recommendations. The only approval body in this town is the town meeting. The town meeting approves all budgets.
No, I think the town meeting appropriates that amount of money that's,
Well, they vote on it, they vote on it.
right, they appropriate the money to be spent. The school committee is absolutely, positively in charge of their budget, and they have line item autonomy, and they are responsible for making the choices that are presented. So the school committee is absolutely, positively responsible for the line item choices that are made. So I just want to make that perfectly clear.
Are you finished? You finished?
I'm finished. I'll
Okay,
come back
sorry.
to that, but go ahead.
Okay.
I will too.
Pardon me?
I'll talk about it later too.
Yeah, okay. All right, go right ahead, I'm sorry.
No, just, one of the things that I did want to do was thank the finance committee. As we had a number of people put this document together under Frank's direction, meeting with you folks individually, we sat with Jim and had Sheila on the phone, working with our middle school principals, so that you could delve into the lines. So you folks asked us a lot of questions, a lot of follow-up emails, and I just appreciate the diligence that you folks put forward in terms of that, because it really sparked our thinking as we left you folks, and truly we appreciated that.
It was a pleasure, we had a good experience,
It really was.
everybody.
And with that, again, you folks have the information line by line. Frank is going to walk us through just a quick overview in terms, and we'll be happy to take any questions.
Okay. So what's different in this year's budget? We have a few things that we've done differently, as you've probably noticed. First of all, we have prepared this budget using a zero-based budgeting approach. We started from the ground up, and we asked all of the administrators to tell us what they actually needed in the accounts, not taking the budget and adding a certain percentage incremental budget. We did not do that. Also, it's a site management budget. You've noticed that each school has their own site, and then there are individual sites beyond that, special ed as an example, technology, et cetera. We've renamed hundreds of accounts within the budget so that they were nice and clear. Some of the accounts in the past would just say text. Now they'll say text that will tell you the school that they're at, so you'll be able to identify those expenses just by looking at the budget.
How many new accounts have you opened up? I mean, there are literally probably thousands, I'm sure.
Well,
Because of the number
I
of
honestly
systems.
stopped counting it around 300, so,
And there's a lot more than that, I think, really. right?
yeah, there probably are,
Yeah,
because I
really.
did stop at about
reduced a lot.
300.
And
Accounts as
and
well.
of course, there's sets and subsets, so that, yeah, right. Okay, very good.
So you just mentioned the numerous accounts that we have established. We've also itemized all the salaries, as you see in there. You see what the person is actually making this year, and you see what the projected salary is next year. We've also included, I think, a very important piece in this year's budget, and that is a complete breakdown of all of the special education tuition costs. It's such a big portion of the budget that we thought it was important to list by student. Actually, we did not put the student's name in there, you know that, but
Right.
we did put their daily rate and how many days they were attending. On our next slide, it shows a overview of the budget, and so I'm going to turn around a little bit to see this and tell you that FY15, the original budget was $50 million, as you know. That was passed at the previous Springtown meeting. And then in the fall, the town meeting appropriated $588,751, which gave us a total of $50.5 million. Our original budget, our preliminary budget to the school committee was $53 million. The town manager received information from the state, looked it all over, looked at what the needs were of the town, and he said, I'm sorry, folks, we can't afford $53 million. What we can really afford this year is $52.4 million. So that required cutting, reducing the budget by $618,000, which we have done. Next slide, it shows the total budget at $52.4 million and the various, the four different categories that make up that budget. For example, salaries are approximately 75% of the budget. The contracted services, your tuition costs, your transportation costs, et cetera, are 22%. Your utilities are 2%, and your supplies are 2%. On our next slide, we show you a summary of all of the reductions that were presented to the school committee and approved at the last meeting. So you have all of that information there. If you have any questions on that, we'd be happy to.
I have one question.
Okay.
Within this $618,000 reduction, how many teaching positions are affected?
Okay, just teaching. Well, you see a .5 kindergarten teacher right there.
Right.
And then moving down, you see that there are 2 teachers at the middle schools.
And you also have the music teacher, third line down.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Yeah,
That's a .4.
Right at the
So
chips.
are these being eliminated, or is there some other reason for that?
Those positions, for example, the .5 kindergarten
Yeah.
at the Harrington School, we had over the summer an influx like we had never seen at the kindergarten level
Right.
there, so we added a session.
Right.
Anticipating that our enrollment will go down, and so far our registrations bear that out. That position is no longer needed at the kindergarten level. However, you'll notice from our previous preliminary budget presentation, we've added a first grade because that bubble's going to go up at the Harrington School. At the CHIPS, we've been able to provide music for our CHIP students for the past couple of years. That was something new that we had tried in terms of putting that in. A staff member there also teaches at another building as well. She is a .2 over at the McCarthy School, so she will lose the .4 here. Still maintain the .2 at the McCarthy, still be employed. And if there's an opening, she'll have the opportunity to transfer. And at the middle school, you have 2 grade 5 teachers there. Our enrollment has been dropping over the past few years. And looking at class size at the McCarthy, we felt we could make that cut in terms of, and keep class size at 25. And those 2 teachers are, through attrition, will have an opportunity to transfer to other positions in the district.
Okay, well, I want to ask some questions about enrollment.
Sure.
So in the document here that you gave us, it's enrollment as of December 1. Okay, what I notice is that Harrington is a school that really has, they really have a high population. In fact, they last year had the highest kindergarten number, and yet they're the ones that are going to lose a staff person or a half a staff person.
Yes.
And also, I noticed the disparity in the class size with South Row. They have extremely low class sizes.
They do.
Right, so I wanted to speak to the parity of that particular building having a low class size where other buildings have a higher class size.
Trying to balance out your elementary class sizes across the town is a difficult thing to do in the short term. For example, I was a 5th grade teacher at the elementary level. Some years I had 22, a couple of years I had 28, 26, I had 30. It depends on where that bubble goes to. When you look at class sizes here, you look at, are you able to reduce a teacher? We do this every single year with the school committee. We will add a section. I could anticipate adding a grade 3 at the Byham School next year, reducing a grade 2, because that bubble will move through that school. What I had asked every principal to do, an exercise, is to go through and reduce a class at each grade level, what the class size is, reduce a team at each grade level. We had the high school go through that exercise as well. In terms of looking at class size, we try to maintain, particularly at our primary levels, a smaller class size. Can you have equity across, guaranteed grade 1 across the town every year? You can't.
No, I definitely understand that, but is there an updated document, because this is as December 1st, so what we'd really need is to see the document of the people coming in to, say, grade 5, which is
Right.
what you're saying, so that would be, so the document you gave us in the book, as of December 1st, shows that grade 5 at Parker has 175 students, that would be this year, and grade 5 at McCarthy has 206 students this year.
This year.
So I took the 4th grade classes that are going to feed into McCarthy and Parker, and I updated those numbers, so if all those people move on to 5th grade, the grade 5 at McCarthy is going to go from 206 in this school year to 190, so their enrollment's going down by 16 students, whereas Parker's enrollment is going from 175 to 213.
Right, and what you're not taking into account, and you could not know this, is that the 4 schools don't feed evenly into both schools. So you have neighborhoods in Byam, for example, Byam goes to the Parker School, but you have several neighborhoods that go to McCarthy. We did this when we consolidated, when
All
we
right,
closed the
I
rest of
now
the
remember
schools.
the Byam 23 or something.
Right, and then, and some years it's the Byam 27 or the Byam 19, depending on the age of the students and where they're going through the grade levels. Same thing for the Harrington School. Harrington School predominantly goes to the Parker School, but there are neighborhoods there that go to McCarthy. So we have projected, I have new numbers, I shared this with the committee. My apologies not to give you updated, well, we actually do have updated numbers right here. And so it's in your packet, it's probably, you can't read it as well. The updated numbers for McCarthy are projected next year is 201. And
We totally can't read that.
take my word for it, and projected at Parker, 179. Now, what happens is we have, through our software that matches students with bus routes, we have our student database manager, Pam, go through and track students who are in 2nd grade that potentially will be going to Parker or McCarthy in 3 years. And so we're able to pull that information. So we have what we believe are the numbers, and we do have students as well that leave us to go to charter school and so forth.
Okay, so back to the conversation about McCarthy.
Yeah.
So we're reducing two teachers at McCarthy. The average class size at McCarthy, 5th grade, is going to be 25.
Next year.
What is the average class size going to be at Parker next year?
Next year will be 22 in grade 5. Okay. But if we try to take a team from there, then the average class size would be 28.
Okay, so I understand that, but I'm just gonna say, I wanna go back to South Row and the current low grade sizes. I mean, they got 17, according to this document of December 1.
Yep.
17 average class size in kindergarten, 18 average class size in grade 2. So, I mean, they have some low numbers there.
Right.
And if you took out a grade level, a class size on grade, the now, which would be grade 3, I think that still brings them up only to 25.
You're looking at the current numbers right now, and you're looking at kindergarten into 1st?
I'm looking, well, there's kindergarten, we're not gonna worry about 1st grade because we know people go to private schools.
Right, typically we
But
have about
that's
8 to 10.
17 students at average class size at South Row. And then we're gonna look at grade 2. Currently, this year, the average class size is 18 and
18 and 19.
18.5. That's a pretty low class size.
Right. And if I took away,
One of those sections, then
Yeah.
that would bring it up to an average of about 25 or 24 kids.
right, so now it comes down to prioritizing. In terms of, would you prefer to have 25 in a class at grade 3 or 25 at grade 5? If we needed to reduce 75% of our budgeted salaries and looking through enrollment where we could reduce, the choice was grade 5.
Okay, so what I'm gonna say here is enrollment drives the budget. It drives what you get from the state. It drives everything. So I think there, for whatever reason, the demographics in the town are such that there is a low enrollment in that particular area. So I think that is something to think about as you go forward. And tied to this, what are your decisions about school choice? Are you going to start filling those spots in South Row or other places with school choice? Have they made a number? Is that been
The answer's
discussed
yes.
yet?
The answer is yes. And at Tuesday night's school committee meeting, the school committee voted on my recommendations, which included a few students at grade 3 at South Row. You know, we added 2 students to that particular class.
How many?
2?
2 students
Yes.
at South Row
Yep.
for all of grade 3?
For grade 3 next year.
Right. And what is the total number of school choice student spots you're offering in what levels?
We're offering 27.
And,
And we're offering...
because it's important, because that's more revenue
yeah.
coming in.
Yes.
And if you want, I mean, I think personally, I would be very, very aggressive with the positions. Because you need to fill the seats and get some revenue going.
We had this conversation Tuesday evening. It was a great conversation in terms of you have the expenses and you have the revenue, and you try to balance that. So every year, when we look at our enrollment dropping at a particular grade level, we will reduce our expenses by a teacher, where it's still educationally a good idea to do that. I mean, we could remove teachers every year and have class sizes of 30, but that's not good for anyone. At the same time, pushing up our school choice numbers, we currently have 44 students, and we have 5 students graduating Chelmsford High. So the remaining students that we have, the 39 plus the 27, that's an aggressive amount of students that we've had in terms of school choice. So where we can reduce, we'll reduce. If not, we will supplement and try to generate the revenue there.
Okay, so now I have one other question relates to the 2 positions, you said through attrition. So I noticed in your book, which was really great, you said that 52% of the employees of the school department are on the top step.
Yes.
So my question is, of the 52% that are at the top step, is there some sort of indication what percentage is going to be retiring, say, in the next few years? And in particular, for this year, so you have people retiring at the top and people
Right.
coming in at the lower number. What is the saving differential in the salary
We have
projected?
projected, and as you know, that goes from year to year.
Right.
In terms of,
But for, like, the savings for this year, and how do you see the retirement thing rolling out for the next couple of years?
right, and that's a combination. You could have somebody at the top teaching step and be 47 years old and have another 15 years of teaching. So you can't necessarily look at, the steps. It's looking at the steps and the ages and trying to guess that. Last year, we had 30-something people retired. This year, we have 10 in terms of that wave. And I know, Frank, you have the number, and I know it's in here.
If we go to the previous slide there, you'll see down at the bottom where it says salary adjustments, $7,662.
Right.
That adjustment is because there was one teacher who had put in for retirement, but then rescinded it. So that gives you an idea of how much the savings can be when a teacher at a higher level goes out, and then we replace that teacher with someone who has, say, for example, a master's degree and 2 years' experience.
The 75% of the cost is salaries. What is the increase in salaries on a percentage basis from 15 to 16 fiscal?
I got to go to my notes on that.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've looked at that particular,
Since, that's the biggest cost.
yeah.
Right.
And
I have a figure of 3.5%.
does that include the reductions in some of the personnel?
Yes, all the reductions.
Okay.
It includes all of the longevity, and it
That's
includes...
3.5.
Yeah, it includes everything related to salary.
I don't know if you have an answer. Assuming that you kept the same people, what would the increase have been? You probably don't have that information.
Kind of what I was asking.
For the retirees?
No, In other words, right now, the difference between 15 and 16 includes a reduction of personnel.
Yes, it does.
What if you had, what I'm trying to do is, get the same balance. What if they didn't leave or were not cut? What would have been the percentage? Because I'm trying to...
You're looking for the average salary increase is what you're looking for.
Yeah. That's a good point, too.
Yeah. Well, there was a cost of living increase for all teachers across the board, and then if you had a teacher...
How much was that?
That was
It's just over 2%.
2%, yeah. And then if you have someone going from a master's step 2 up to a master's step 3,
Yeah.
then it's much different.
Yeah.
Much different. If you'd like more information on the salary review, I'd be happy to give that to you.
I have one question that falls into that category. What are the numbers of non-teaching positions, staff positions versus teaching positions? What's the ratio?
Not sure that I can give that to you off the top of my head, but I know that we have a staffing summary in here that gives you a summary of all of those. And that's under your tab 5.
Tab 5?
So you see the summary that we have right there. It breaks it all down by teachers, by specialists, by program assistants, technology, administrators, et cetera.
So you'd have to kind of
Yep,
break them out, and then you could work out the percentages that way.
that's
huh?
right.
I have a question. The additional costs that you took out of the potential savings, could you go over each one of those? I'm not, and then I'm...
Additional cost.
Right, and then another question is, transportation late buses, what does that equal? I'm just looking at the safety, the kids going home later. If you could address it, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. First of all, the additional cost, we had taken out of the budget the Destination Imagination program, and then after some discussion, we decided that it should be in there. Everyone thought that it was a worthwhile program and that we should continue it, so we budgeted some money for that. As far as the transportation is concerned, when I prepared the budget originally, I put in 180 days for late buses at the middle school. Actually, what it amounts to is approximately 120 days. So we made that reduction. We're not changing the number of days at all that we're providing late buses for the middle schools. It was just a miscalculation, really. I based it on 180 days rather than 120 days.
So it's an adjustment that led to a reduction.
That's correct. Right.
And we knew that with our preliminary budget, that was the first draft that we would be going back through.
What about the substitutes?
When you look at the substitutes, you have, you're looking at potential savings. We've spent a long time reviewing and looking at our substitute costs. What we have, back in '03, I believe, we outsourced our substitute service. We went with a company called Opus. And then we moved to a company that we currently use called Kelly Services. And they have been a good partner for us. Their staffing rates are over 90% in terms of providing folks, our subs work for them, receive training. But looking at the overall cost there, we had taken apart, we were looking at the number of days that staff were taking and so forth. The biggest hit for that contract is the management services, in terms of for them providing the actual service. So what we've decided to do, a lot of school departments right now are on a continuum for subs. Some are at, back when I was in school, or when I first started teaching 25 years ago, it's you call the principal and he or she contacts Mrs. Johnson, who lives in town, and she calls all the subs to make sure that everybody's staffed. Folks have gone to a software system called ESOP or a similar based product where that is can provide online services for teachers and be able to make robocalls to teachers and give them assignments and so forth. But they manage it in-house, similar to what they would do if they had Mrs. Johnson call. We have Kelly Services, where they manage everything. Our teachers can log in, work with Kelly Services, and provide the substitutes. A lot of districts are moving from the first level to the second level. Some are currently moving from the second level to the third level of the Kelly Services. We've decided, in terms of where we are economically, to take a step backwards, remove that overhead cost, and take our subs in district, utilize the ESOP software, which is what Kelly Services actually uses. And our personnel director has used in a different district as well. And so that would be a change in practice for us internally in terms of providing substitute services, but what it'll do is it'll reduce the management costs. So what you see, Sheila, is, the potential savings is $169, and that's a conservative effort on our part. But the additional cost would be software purchase as well as additional staffing within our personnel/business office to manage the subs.
So, but the actual role that the substitute person performs is not going to change?
No.
So there isn't going to be any, like, people being grouped in an area and watched by, like, one person or anything like that at the high school? There's no change in the methodology of what's happening with the substitute teacher. It's just that you're bringing back the management, the clerical management process.
And the answer to that is yes. When I sat here back in October and we talked about ways in which managing our sub costs, what we soon came to realize is we weren't working with the actual numbers. So in terms of that piece, that was not a strategy that would include a lot of savings for us. And so this is why we spent the last several months going through and coming to this particular decision.
How many, what's the average substitute, the absentee per day? Do you have that at all?
I don't have that with me, Strat.
Yeah, roughly, do you have any? No.
Number of days?
Yeah. I don't want to give you a number and have
That's okay.
and have it be incorrect.
I have a question that, excuse me, go ahead, Patrick.
Go ahead.
No, the question I have is, by moving away from Kelly Services, of course, you're gonna save the administration costs.
Yes.
You mentioned that they also give training to the substitutes.
Yep.
Now, does that mean that in addition to the administrative costs that you will assume, that you'll also assume the training for them as well?
Yes.
Now, is that gonna be a wash, or are you gonna save money in that regard?
Well, it'll be added duties for our administrative staff.
Added duties? So you won't need additional people to do that?
No.
Shouldn't need additional people?
Between our HR director, principals, I mean, that's something that all of our administrators.
So you're gonna do it all in-house? You're not gonna have Mrs. Johnson do it, it's gonna be in-house, okay?
Yeah, we're gonna have to.
All right, fine.
Would there be any, in the past, I asked the question, and they said one of the benefits of having an outside service is that you're not, people aren't considered employees of the school department. So say you have a person who's a regular sub, and that happens all the time.
Sure.
Like, once you start getting called, they like you, you go all the time. So say I'm liked, and they call me in 180 days,
Yep.
right? So now am I a contracted employee? Are there any employee implication costs or personnel costs associated with me being a liked substitute?
You would be an employee of Chelmsford Public Schools. So this will impact our payroll as well. But at the same time, you would not be eligible for benefits. One of the new wrinkles, and Paul fortunately brought this to our attention, in terms of the newly passed Affordable Care Act, in terms of providing insurance for folks who work
So many hours a week.
so many hours a week. And our HR director has reached out to all of his peers, has reached out to, he and Jeannie Parziali have been going back and forth. We conference call in with Paul in terms of what does that look like for all the school, a majority of the school districts house their subs in-house, and how are they planning on managing this? Right now, they don't know the extent to which, potentially there are fines if somebody works over a 3-month period and averages over 30 hours per week. some districts are limiting their subs they're planning on next year to 29, 28 hours a week. That's, we would like to avoid that, but that's one strategy. As we've talked with our attorneys, it's still evolving in terms of what that looks like. But we'll be working with the other districts and working with the town as well going forward for that.
What's the status of the new business manager applications and so forth?
We have had that posted. We went through the first round of interviews, and the candidates were not up to our satisfaction. And so what we did is we reopened the search, and currently we have applicants coming in right now.
How many?
Right now, 6.
I'm really impressed that you turned away the first round of people.
We do that for every hire.
Okay.
You know, we're currently in the high school principal search as well. And the first thing I tell the committee is, we're not going to settle. This is not something that we go through just to get done. I'd rather go with an interim than have somebody we were not impressed with.
Were you
Go ahead,
done?
Patrick.
Patrick?
Were you done with the presentation, or? I suggest we give them time to go through the presentation. And
Okay, well, I think they've just about finished it, but that's,
Yeah, we can go to the next slide, Anne Marie, and the one after that.
Oh, I'm sorry, I had a question about that slide. I'll ask it at the end if you want. It just popped in my
Ask
mind.
it now if you
It's up to you.
prefer.
Technology, there's no reductions in technology?
Technology budget is reduced from last year by $135,000.
Approximately.
Approximately. 136.
But weren't those reductions moves from the budget into capital?
No.
No? Okay. So where did we see those reductions, just to refresh? I didn't
No.
review last year's budget.
Yeah, we went
so.
through it, so finally, but... Okay, so you do feel that that's sufficient, what you have, and there's nothing that you want to take out of that?
Not this time.
We have some other significant points that I want to bring to your attention. The first one is that there are no increases in the student activity accounts. The lunch prices have not been increased. The athletic fees, we're not anticipating an increase there. And then the transportation fees also have not been increased.
I think this is tremendous. I think for the town, this is what the town wants to see, and I think they're getting it, and I think it's wonderful that you're bringing these significant points out.
And on our next slide, there is a summary of the cost per pupil. It's comparative data that's supplied through the Department of Education, DESE, and you see Chelmsford down there. This is a mistake on the slide. It says 2015. It's not 2015. That's the year that we're in right now.
2014.
It's 2014 that says for Chelmsford, the average per pupil cost is $12,437, and you see the state on the very bottom of that. The average cost is $14,547.
And that's based on the end of report,
That's
and the
right.
year report that you prepared.
That's correct.
Okay, so we're,
And so there are some communities that are your neighbors. On that report up there, you see Billerica, Wilmington, Tewksbury, and there are some communities that are quite a distance from you, but their enrollments are very similar, their economic situation is very similar, so it gives you an idea of the expenses that they are incurring on a...
Westford is almost spot on with us, within a couple $100.
Yeah.
Yep.
In terms of size, too.
Yeah.
That's right. So I thought that you would like that information as well.
That's good information.
That is the last chart, or piece of information that we have to share about
Very much.
this budget. You're welcome. I would be happy to spend a few minutes, if you would like, to go over the monthly reports for January. I know that when we met last, we went over the December ones. I have not finished preparing the ones for February. We'll be done with that in a couple of days. We'll present that to the school committee, and then we'll be happy to come back here
right?
At any time. You meet every
Every Thursday, every Thursday, yeah?
One thing I want to bring up is in the
Thank you, sir.
lunch program. I just don't understand, haven't had some experience, that the participation
2 pages.
is not higher than it is.
Thank you.
I think they're around 30% or something. And I don't understand why there isn't a higher participation and you're not making any money. I just can't, there's something, in my opinion, maybe you need a consultant to come in and review why that is occurring.
Be happy to have the,
Is there one more of this so Pam could have a copy?
Sorry, Ben.
we would be happy to have April Lasky, who is the school food service director, part-time. As you know, she splits between Bill Ricker and Chelmsford. Come in and talk about that. I think she may tell you that part of the reason is that you don't have the right type of equipment in a lot of the schools to provide hot meals. You have preferred meals in some of your schools, and that, I'm sure,
Big
would,
capital expense, yeah.
it is a big
huge
capital
expense,
expense.
right.
How much? You know?
It's been on our capital plan
It's on the
for
capital
several years.
plan.
And 2 years ago, the committee had charged April with putting together what it would cost.
What are we talking about?
Again.
Ovens, is that basically what you're needing, is ovens?
Warming tables and all that stuff?
Yeah, there's,
All
Refrigerators.
kinds of equipment.
A lot of,
Stoves,
right.
I don't,
talking about millions of dollars.
a lot of money.
Yeah,
It's a big expense.
serious money, yeah.
Pass that out too. Someone asked if we have a detailed report. Here it comes. A little bit more detailed.
You want a detailed report? There's a
Probably,
detailed report.
not as much as you wanted, but I did want to point this out to
We should be
you.
able to rip through this in about 5 or 10 minutes.
How
right?
much has this changed since the last time we saw this?
That's what I was going to point out.
Yeah, okay.
Good question.
Because I know I have one at home.
Yes.
I have two at home.
Okay. You have two, you're a lucky man.
Some things you don't want, but it's all there. Yeah.
So the last time that we met, and you can go home and check your report, at the bottom line, you would have seen that that negative number was $736,000.
Yeah.
And people on the Finance Committee expressed concern about that, and we agreed with that concern. The number as of the January 31 date is $660,000. So you can see that it is approximately $70,000 better than it was.
Yes.
Hopefully, when we give you the next report in a few weeks, we'll see a little bit more
So
improvement.
hope this trend is going down.
Can't tell you that yet, because we've only shown you 2 months, but we are on top of things. We're looking at
You
things
need a crystal
every
ball
single
for that,
day.
right?
Frank, do we know what caused that $70,000 projection reduction?
Yes, we had some, we canceled out some purchase orders in special education. They were a little bit too high because students coming, going, and so we canceled some of those out. We also reduced our payroll encumbrances by a little bit. Those two factors made up for the difference. It's going down a little bit. We just spent 6 hours a couple of days ago reviewing the February numbers, and we'll be presenting those to the school committee real soon.
I'd say this is what I call transparency
This is good.
at its finest.
Fantastic.
There's 12 pages, 14 by, what is this?
Yeah, this is,
14 by 17.
A lot of numbers.
You know, not everybody can see this on
big as-
camera, and it's
it's the most numbers you can get on a page and still be able to read it.
But one of the things that we'll have in place going forward is a monthly set meeting to go through this process. And that's, and again, we're waiting for MASBO to come in April and review our, but this is a recommendation that Mr. Sullivan had for us. This is a practice that Frank's been
This
doing
is,
for
this is
2
great,
years.
because, you know, this obviously, like, this is transparency. It's not my favorite word, but, you know, we'll go with it.
Sure.
The other thing I think that we probably ought to consider is, when we have a monthly report, we ought to have in, maybe, the special ed guy, okay, and then maybe the new high school principal, or, you know, and we'll vary every month, you know, do the budget process, and then have one of the key players come in also. And I think that gives them, you know, they have a little bit more ownership to their budget, and they can maybe explain what's going on in their little part of the world, and I think it'll help us, and obviously it'll help the people in the town to understand what's going on, so that they never have to go through this again.
Why don't you shoot us an email with a couple of dates?
I will shoot you some emails tomorrow.
Then we will get back to you and set
put it
something
together.
up.
Okay, we'll do that, yeah, do it.
You know, when Jim and I had the meeting with the school department, and, you know, we asked any questions we wanted, and one of my major concerns was that any questions that were asked about the fiscal year 16 budget be succinctly answered, very specifically, because you know your business better than anyone else in this town. And I just feel tonight that you have answered these questions extremely well and extremely thorough, and I'm very confident that that's going to happen, you know, at town meeting as well. So I want to thank you for that, and through these 813 line items, we can find certainly differences from the information that we had from last year. Can I ask?
Is this straight from the accounting system, or?
Yes, it is.
It's all Munis, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this spreadsheet is so large that you can't put this type of report on Munis, so it had to be downloaded to Excel.
Okay.
But what I did give to you is a summary that is on Munis, and if you went to the back page of that report and
match.
compared that, you'll see that they're going to match.
Okay. Yeah, because my concern is with Excel spreadsheets, they're changeable.
That's right. And that's why I'm giving you that report right there, so that you can check it out.
Page 5,
Page 5.
and line 284. I noticed there's some handwritten notes in there with the Kelly Services,
Really?
long-term service.
Page 5.
284?
284, has
Or
anybody got a
285,
ruler?
my eyes
Way
are
at the
bad,
top.
yeah.
Check the top.
All right, let's see.
Right here.
Oh, yeah, I do have some hand up. Yep, okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, okay. 284, you said.
285, yeah.
285, right, which is the total, yeah. So basically, I'll explain that whole line to you. If you were to look at, for example, FY '14, you'd see that under column Z, does everyone have that? Year-to-date actual was $722,000. In addition, there were unpaid invoices there of $25,000. Those are the original auditor's notes.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay? So what we've done here in this budget is we've said, all right, we had only $655,000 budgeted. We have actually expended, as of the January 31 date, $286,000. We've encumbered $219,000, and we're figuring to finish the whole year, we're going to need that $230,000. So that's why I put that in the required column.
Okay.
So it's going to be the actual plus the encumbrance plus the required, which is going to bring you pretty close to that $750,000 figure that you see for the previous year.
Okay.
And we're monitoring that every month. We looked at that this past month, and we're saying, "No, that's not changing. Right now, it's right on target."
Thank you.
I had a question. When you were here before, we talked about being more aggressive about charging items to the community ed building and childcare. What additional charges are being made towards that this year? And what is going to be used towards the next year's budget?
Off the top of my head, I can't tell you the numbers that we have charged to community ed. I can tell you that we have lived up to what we said, and we have charged electricity expenses and other expenses, maintenance, to community ed, because they're in that building, the Weston School building, and they're using it, so they're helping to pay for the maintenance there and the utility expenses as well. They also have a budget in here,
Yeah, I did want to, what is that, tab 21? or
19.
19, and we'll take a minute to go over that if you would like.
Well, my question was the bottom line of the balance.
Okay, very good then. Let me direct you, please, to go to page 3. And look at line 80. On page 3, under tab 19. Is everybody? So, what we see there is that that's the carryover line, and the carryover line had, under column G, for fiscal year 15, $1.9 million. And so we're seeing that the carryover, a line there is, for the childcare is $2 million. We're expecting that we're going to use, if you go up to line 76, you see line 76 under column H, we're going to use approximately $222,000 of that carryover.
Okay.
It's going down.
So it's going down, but there would still be about $1.7 million balance.
Yeah, that's total, but,
$1.6 million, let's say.
right. I'm going to review that a little bit more for you, Kathy, and get back to you on that. I just want to check another figure for you and
Okay.
verify that.
Because this is, glad that we're being more aggressive in charging back actual expenditures to that operation.
Yes.
But what I want to kind of broach as a question. So it seems that their ongoing balance in that account, excess cash, let's say, is being maintained around about $1 million.
It is $1 million. If you look at line 76, under actuals, under column F, it's $1,099,576. That's what we actually finished the year with.
Right, okay.
Okay, so again, we're expecting to use $222,000 of that. That other number that I gave you of the $2 million included our projected revenue. That's why I wanted to check it.
Okay. So here's my basic thought process. The cost of operation seems to be about the same, the revenue coming in, everything seems to go up, but we're maintaining that excess balance of approximately $1 million. Even though we're being more aggressive about charging things. There has to be some sort of avenue, vehicle to, say, perhaps return some, I'm not saying a large portion of it, but some portion of that money perhaps could be returned to the town, like for free cash, and then possibly voted back towards the school committee. I mean, a periodic adjustment. Because there's got to be some sort of vehicle. If you have excess cash, like, look, say the Board of Assessors had their overlay account. I mean, the excess cash supposedly goes back to the town. I mean, is it excess?
This has to be used for this.
This is a little bit different in that it is a revolving account that's set up for this specific purpose of providing childcare services. So anything that you collect goes into this account, and it has to be used for expenses related to that. That's why we talked about paying for the utility costs.
Right.
It's related to that expense. The maintenance is related to that expense. We have $1 million as of June 30th, this past year, but we're anticipating using $222,000. So that you can see right there that we are making a dent in the amount of money that's available there. I can't project what it's going to be for this year, but we are looking at those numbers every month.
I'm just saying philosophically, I understand it, but I'm saying philosophically, there should be some mechanism Because if something is always going to operate in excess, you need some reserves, but do you really need $1 million? You know what I'm saying? There should be some sort of vehicle
Well,
to
if you
return that money to the town, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, maybe there should be, but I think that Paul is, he's shaking his head down there. I don't believe you can,
They're restricted,
but
right?
let's get a ruling from him.
As Frank intently noted, the money stays in a revolving account unless you cease the activity, then it would go to the general fund. But as long as you're running that activity, you can't transfer money out into the general fund. What you can do, and I think that's what you've been getting at, is if you had one-time expenditures for maintenance and so forth, you could then use those funds to invest them into the facility that they're occupying, because they're legitimate expenditures for the program they're running. I think that's what you were saying.
That's exactly
Yeah.
what I was saying, and thank you, Paul, and you jogged my memory. Someone asked, what kind of expenses have you used that money for? This past year, we paid a bill that was originally in the capital budget, and it was like $56,000 to do some major repair work at the Westland School. So that has been paid out of this year's budget. And we'll continue to do that.
So there was no debt incurred?
It's basically using the funds at the facility for the facility. It's, you have to use it for that. It's earmarked for that. You have to use it for that.
Well,
You can't return it back. But it's about using that money at that facility and making sure all that money, all these services and the stuff that needs to be done is covered by that fund as opposed to being covered by something else.
Right.
And that's what you've made strides towards, and I know Frank, you've worked on that as well, is making sure that the money that's there is being used for that facility, and they're not taking additional funds from somewhere else. What you're talking about from taking it and returning it, a vehicle to return it to the town, you're talking about legislation. It would have to be something, a state level change. And that's not gonna happen, so.
Well, I'm just, it's just I'm glad we're getting to be more aggressive. We've talked about it numerous times. That's, and I'm just seeing that amount of money sitting there.
Well, it is going back to the children in the town.
Oh, yeah. Right. But also to that question, does that in any way tie to the CHIPS music program for that .4 teacher of $20,059? Back to this little list. Because that CHIPS program does in fact happen in that building. And I think some of that, the people that do the extra kindergarten session there, do they avail themselves of that music, that .4 music person? Is that something that could be considered in some way, shape, or form as a legitimate expense?
The CHIPS revenue, you will see on the same
Speaking of
page,
children.
line item number 78, and you'll see that we're anticipating collecting approximately $145,000 in CHIPS revenue. That's to offset the cost of this program. This is in the revolving account. But in addition to that, there are many expenses for the CHIPS program that are in the general fund. And that's where the cut is that you saw on the board. The .4 comes from the general fund.
Okay, so I guess my question is, for greater discussion amongst yourself, is there any validity to taking that music program and putting it here under the community education as a valid expense? I just offer that up.
Funding it from the child care revenue,
Right,
you're saying?
because they do have CHIPS thing under here, so I don't see why the music person couldn't, the .4 couldn't fall. I'm just
Something that we
presenting
could
that
take
as an
into
idea so
consideration.
the music can continue to our happy little kids.
If it's legitimate, yeah, I think
If it's legitimate, it's
yeah.
just a thought.
You don't want to move too many things around.
No, but I mean, that happens in that building.
No, I think it's a great thought, you have to ask these questions, and Kathy, only you can do that.
Doesn't affect the bottom line anyways.
It'll affect the bottom line of this,
Of the
but as you
reduction.
know, there's enough in there
Yeah, right.
as a
It's got
carryover.
it's at the free,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
That'd be great if you could
something
look
to
into
vote.
that. That's a great question.
Hey, any more questions?
I have a question. I'm looking at the FY16 cuts, and it's great that we can do that. But I want to know, Frank, how do you feel about these cuts? Do you think it's going to affect the kids or the education?
She's talking to you, Frank.
I'm sure, right?
Start using last initials, first initial, last name, yeah.
I go by MK, you know, always.
We knew when we came out with our preliminary budget that it was going to be on the high side. And so, we immediately began exercises looking at, reductions in our programming. Our goal always is to provide everything we can for kids. We would add money to this, obviously not reduce it. And we've done this, since 2008 in particular, during some lean times in terms of working to prioritize around reductions. And what you see here is a summary of probably 10 more pages of a variety of different scenarios. And that was depending on the number we needed to come in on. If we had reduced by 200,000, we had a plan. If we had reduced by 500,000, we had a plan. We had, before the numbers from the governor had come in, we actually had a plan for about $600,000. And that had taken us at least a couple of weeks going through, working with our building administrators, working with our department coordinators. And so anytime you take a step backwards, it's not good. So what you try to do is you try to minimize the amount of impact that you have on the students. Is it going to impact us educationally? Yes, otherwise we would not have put it into our preliminary budget. And so that's when you start making priorities. And I think as the school committee members talked Tuesday night, Chairman asked, are we comfortable with these cuts? Nobody's comfortable with the cuts, but these are the ones that, upon our recommendation, that the school committee are going with.
And just to highlight and to reiterate with the I'm looking at it here correctly, the teachers of the McCarthy Middle School, the grade 5, it's moving through attrition. It's not actually cutting someone off
They
of
won't be losing it.
Yeah, exactly.
They won't be losing it.
What about the textbooks and the supplies?
That's a good question.
That bothers me a little bit.
That's not the entire budget line item for that. That's a percentage of those particular line items. And I don't have those exact percentages.
I think that we had, and Linda is back there, she can confirm this, I think that we had 145,000 budgeted textbooks, Linda.
You're talking about, the difference is textbook adoption is what you're talking about. This is textbooks across the board in terms of all the curriculum areas. So when we took a look at it, I think it came out to about a 3.4% decrease across all the curriculum areas. So Dr. Tanner was right, it's not the total line item, it's just a portion of it where we can cut back a little bit and work with our vendors, with our publishing companies to kind of bring those costs down.
Were there just some licenses that weren't renewed, that aren't going to be renewed through this, or?
No, all the licenses will be renewed, we've already worked with our publishing companies on that, it's just a matter of just working a little bit more with them in terms of like shipping, for example. Shipping is a great way we can really kind of, knock down the price.
Excellent.
And this is
Thank you.
It's across departments as well. And what we tried not to do is focus on just social studies or just science. It's across the board. So the impact is not as great in each department or each grade level.
So you feel comfortable with these cuts?
Again,
Somewhat?
It's that we're comfortable. But given scenarios that we had drafted, this is the best of a not great situation.
I have a couple of questions. First of all, given that you made the $618,000 in cuts, that's an amount that would not have had to have been taken out of the fund, the supplementary fund. And now we're down to what we thought was $500,000. The question I have is, you did not put back in the librarian at the high school. Not full-time librarian
Yes.
at the high school?
Yes, we did.
You did put that back in, okay, fine. All right, and you put back in the science coordinator as well?
We originally put back the science coordinator, we originally put back the ELA coordinator. That was decisions that we had made in terms of the programming we have in place now. Again, ultimately, and why we put it in our preliminary budget, is we would have a coordinator in every one of our disciplines. Going forward for next year, again, are we comfortable? Well, we're comfortable with the people that we have doing the positions right now in terms of the support for science, for example, as well as ELA and social studies. And also, too, what we've done in terms of science, part of the addition back, you have cost savings, and then additional cost in terms of providing stipended positions for teachers to act as facilitators. Also, too, what we've done is we've rewritten one of the grants where we have had 2 math coaches in the district, and those folks will be science coaches. And what they've worked with as a math team in terms of unpacking the new standards and aligning them with the curriculum, they're quite skilled at that. So I'm comfortable with that team in place as we have our next generation science standards, unpacking that, going through the same process where they've just gone through it quite successfully. The year after that, we'll put in a full science coordinator and a full ELA coordinator as well. And your budget willing.
If the budget allows.
And it comes down to priorities.
Yeah.
Right. Because, obviously, nobody knows what the state's going to do next year.
Right.
It's always a crapshoot. Just one question, it's kind of a general question. We've been going through this process now since the 1st of October, and we've spent money on audits, we've spent money on lawyers, we've spent money on consultants, and we've spent a lot of money. How much money have we actually spent? That's going to be a question, I'm sure that's going to be asked you at the town meeting, so I just want to get you prepared.
Sure.
Have an answer for it. So, do you have any, I'm sure Frank has a tip.
I'm going to get back to you on that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All of us.
All of us. Consultant fees, the whole deal.
Sure.
Separation fees, don't forget the separation fees.
For true cost.
Right.
And I have a last question for Frank, not you. And I'm not sure how that works. Like, in my line of work in the private sector, I have a team of 8 people. I discuss anything that goes on with my budget. Have you brought it up to the teachers' attention, the cuts? Are they comfortable with the cuts?
Again, nobody's comfortable with
All right, let me rephrase that.
I'm not being
Comfortable.
fresh.
No, I understand, my mistake, but are they at ease with the specific proposed cuts for FY 2016? Is the morale better?
In terms of the specific people that are impacted, no, they're not happy at all. In terms of the conversations that I've had before, we share this with the school committee. We work with our administrators, our building administrators, to work with those individuals who will be impacted and explain to them the situation. And again, we've done this every year in terms of enrollment. We've lost a 3rd grade teacher, we've added a 4th grade teacher. These are conversations that we have. Is the staff comfortable? We'd like to see our preliminary budget, that we put forth, that we felt that we needed to run the school district next year. But at the same time, our staff and our administrators, we've done this over the years in terms of reducing and trying to balance those needs. It's something we do every day.
I just think, given the situation that we have gone through, I think that it's very important to take a look at the morale of the people working at the school, because the happier they are, the better it is teaching the kids. And I think it's very important to take a look at that and make sure, not comfortable, but everybody's at least at ease.
At least everybody's aware in terms of that information as well.
So there is open line of communication with everybody. And okay, thank you.
I guess the bottom line is that this is what needs to be done in order to bring it within the revenue that's expected to be approved for the school budget.
And don't get me wrong, I agree, and I think it's great, but
Yeah.
I think that given what it has gone through the past year,
No one likes cuts. But at a certain point, something has to give, and these are the recommendations. And as we were discussing earlier, the school committee does have autonomy over its budget. They choose where things go, and they approve the budget, but the town meeting is what appropriates the money for the payment of that approval. And if they don't approve, if the town meeting doesn't approve, they will not appropriate. So ultimately, the money does come from the town, and while the school committee does have autonomy over how it's spent, if the town doesn't like it, it's not going to pay for it.
Right. But my point is very specific, that they are the 5 people in this town that have control and input on directly how the money that is deemed available to them is how it's spent. So if they, as a committee, do not like the choices that are put before them, they have line item autonomy, and they can say, and they should. And if they do not speak up and vote directly on it, then it is the fault of them. So they have line item authority, and they need to give the direction so that the appropriate decisions can be made.
True, on certain items to a certain extent, but there are also requirements that need to be met with certain funds as well.
I'm just saying that they have choices about these cuts. It's their budget, their decision, their line item authority.
But because they can only spend what the town has.
That's not even my,
Okay.
that's not my point. I totally agree with that. I'm not saying that. I'm saying.
You're saying that the town meeting can't come and say, well, we want you to do this, we're gonna give you the money, but not if you do this. You have to do this instead.
But what I'm also.
You're right, the town meeting can't do that.
Right. But what I am saying even more specifically, and let me be very clear, as clear as I can be, is I'm on the school committee, and I do not like that there is a $94,000 cut on the ELA coordinator. I'm saying, I'm not gonna approve that. You're gonna have to come up with another $94,000 someplace else. They give the direction. They are the people's voices. They have to take responsibility for giving that direction and accepting that that's how they want to spend
And
their
you're
money.
right, the town meeting members can't change
Right.
how that's done, correct.
So I wanted to ask, at the school committee meeting, did they approve these line item changes, or did they just say, we approve the grand total? That's my question. What
Another
was the
question
vote?
for Frank, because I was not at that meeting.
Thank you, Frank.
Yes. The school committee voted, the appropriated budget of $52.4 million. And with the recommendations, there was not a vote taken, but there was the recommendations, as I had asked specifically, and Mike was quite clear as well. We are starting, for example, our transfer process next week. And so that impacts folks whose positions are eliminated, who still have a job within Chelmsford Public Schools. But we need to start that transition process soon, because we can't start hiring until we know what positions are filled. And right now, this is in order to get quality candidates. This is our hiring time. So I had asked for clarity from the committee, and we received it, that these were the reductions that we were going with. Was an official vote taken? No.
Should there be?
Yeah.
That would be a question for the committee.
But under state law, the school committee doesn't have that level of autonomy only in the DESI codes. They don't have the ability to go in and say, hire this .4.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying,
So they don't approve, they don't.
I'm saying-
A concept that under the DESI codes, they can't go in and say, make the specific cuts on this list. That's not the school committee's autonomy.
No, but-
That's done by the superintendent, and then it goes down.
they have to approve what he presents to them.
We haven't done that.
But they don't have, when they approve, as you know, they approve budget lines.
Right.
The DESI codes. They don't come in within those lines and say, I don't want the .28,
Right.
I want the .48, and this.
Right, but I'm saying, did they approve within the DESI lines these reductions?
No, they haven't voted on that.
Right, but that is their
No,
responsibility.
their responsibility is to vote the budget lines, not the individual components of the lines. That falls under the superintendent. He's the manager of the state law of the school department.
But he's presenting it to them.
Right, for feedback, but the superintendent has the ultimate discretion on how to spend within the budget categories as defined by the state. Am I correct? And you've been on the school.
Yes, well, I'm just saying, I think that they have the opportunity to express how they truly feel, and they should do so.
We, just like we do, we can express how we feel, we're blue in the face.
Well, they have more authority than, than others. I'm not saying that about the $690,000, I can say they have input into their perspective of the $619,000.
They can have an opinion. Just like I've got a public safety expenditure budget, I guess theoretically I can hire everybody in the fire department and nobody in the police department because that's the line the town meeting gives me. But in practicality, in the schools, under state law, the school committee sets the categories. It's up to the superintendent to spend within those categories, and that's why they have to go back to the committee when they want to move money between those levels.
Lines.
So I mean, as you know, the education law really, pushes it down to the management level, not at the school committee level in terms of how spending decisions are made in general. That's all. I mean, I just don't want there to be confusion.
I think that this year is the first year that the school budget is going to be a separate line in the warrant, isn't that correct?
Yes, I was asked about
So don't tell the town meeting members that they have nothing to say about it, because they do have something to say about it. Now, if, hypothetical situation, should the finance committee and the board of selectmen both recommend against the budget and go to town meeting, what do you think might happen? Do you think that the town meeting members might vote against the budget? It's possible, and if they do, we gotta start all over again.
Well, you have to leave town meeting with a budget. They have
Well, I know that, but we'll have a long town meeting, but I mean, it could happen, but you know, the town meeting members have a responsibility, and they have a vote. Okay, they're not gonna change it, but they have a vote. They can either vote yes, or they can vote no. But don't say that they don't have a vote, because that's gonna upset a lot of people.
They definitely have a vote. I'm just
With all
saying,
due respect to what you said.
I'm just saying that the school committee is in a powerful position to influence the changes within the budget, and they should avail themselves of it if they want to.
Have we straightened this thing out now?
Yeah, I think so. I want within that same category.
Talking about who does
I
what.
just wanted to follow up on, so we had the big detailed audit report, and someone went to the selectmen and gave a status on the various updates within the recommendations.
Yes.
And thank you very much for doing all those things. I just wanted to follow up, because one topic of conversation was the school committee and them learning how to sign warrants, what was appropriate, and the responsibilities for that. Has anything been done in that regard? Have they had their classes? And because they were supposedly going to have someone in from MASC, and supposedly maybe an individual sessions on what they should look for in warrants. Has any of that actually happened?
That'd be a question directly for the committee.
If you'd like me to speak to it, Mr. Antonelli sat down and met with us individually and went over the warrant. It's the first time that it was ever explained to me as a school committee member. I was told it was basically ceremonial, that professional eyes had seen every warrant before they came before the school committee, and the last step before it went to the next set of professional eyes at the town side was our signature.
So you know that that's incorrect that it was not ceremonial now?
Well, yeah.
Because,
But I can also tell you this, that there was a long history of outdated invoices being slipped into warrants. So if you were on the school committee and signed a warrant during perhaps 3 years ago, there's a really good chance you signed one with outdated invoices.
well, what I do know is that there's a series of checks and balances, and that this has been a tremendous learning experience for everybody. And I think everybody should, going forward from this, be somewhat assured. We have this tremendous document. We have taken the recommendations of the various auditors, put them in place. Including the Munis update, so we have the same chart of accounts. The Finance Committee is been reviewing all this information. I think on the going forward, there'll be more coordination and communication between the town venues, the town accountant and treasurer, and the school department. And I think that the town as a whole should begin to feel confident that we have accurate numbers and numerous eyes are checking on them. And I think that this has been a horrific experience for everybody, but I feel that we have a very strong school department, and it is an asset to this town. And it's sad to me that what is happening as far as education has been tainted by this situation. So I hope going forward that we can all learn from this and also acknowledge what we do have and the fact that we're getting stronger all the time. But because you do have a good quality school department, and you have many, many teachers and employees who are working very hard to provide the services, and their efforts should be acknowledged. And that's my point, is that there are a series of checks and balances which are going to be stronger and deeper. But even if you look at back comments of the Finance Committee itself, asked questions, Claire Janot did ask why the budget was not going up over various years. Mr. Dukakis has asked on numerous occasions, was the school department getting the right amount of money? So I think that even though all this material has been reviewed by numerous people, mistakes happened, bad mistakes, but now it seems that we've implemented the changes necessary, and that maybe we could go forward with a confidence in everybody. And I think that would make us feel happier as a community.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Frank and Frank. Did a great job.
Frank squared.
Thanks, Frank squared.
And we appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, we'll have many others.
See you soon.
Thank you.
Okay. We're at the point of, in the agenda, let's see, I gotta look at my agenda here, what we're doing.
Thanks, Frank.
Okay. Don't run away, Frank. Please don't leave. There may be some questions for you from the audience. Just never know. I know you wanted a quick getaway, but you gotta... Okay, we have, I believe we have some minutes from the, is it the 9th and the 19th? The 9th and the 19th? Those are two dates? 12th, the 12th and 19th? Has everybody read them?
Were those the ones that you sent out?
There was one sent out today and one sent out, one was sent out a week ago. The one for the,
And yesterday.
yeah, and there was one sent out yesterday.
The one a week ago, I'm okay.
The one, okay, the one, that's the one on the 12th?
Yeah.
So do we have any comments on the minutes for the 12th? Hearing none, do I have a message to approve the minutes for the...
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Something else, I just wanted to clarify, next Tuesday's meeting, which is with the Neshoba Valley Tech, on the agenda, I put 7 o'clock. If that's a problem with folks, I can obviously change it to 7:30, and I can just notify the folks that are going to be coming. Which date would you, I mean, which time would you rather? I know you'd rather 7:30, right?
I'd rather 9, but
But then you won't get home till midnight. It's okay, no problem.
7:30 does work better for me, but if it works,
Sheila,
yeah.
Strat doesn't care. You don't care, right? No.
Doesn't care, I don't care.
7.
7? Kathy?
Fine, yeah.
7?
I'm fine with it all.
Looks like
The
it's,
7:30s lose.
it looks like it's 7 o'clock, so we'll leave it the way it is.
But Thursdays is 7:30.
Yes, Thursday
My
is
vote
back.
is with Sheila.
Oh, look at that.
Thank you, Strat.
So Thursday is 7:30.
You still lost, so.
Yeah, we did.
Why you
You knew that.
Okay, that's the new business. Okay, public comments from the audience. Do we have anybody? Yes, Miss Thorne.
I just have a question. We were working on like efficiencies.
Yes, yes.
And all that other stuff. I
Yes.
just said he forwarded you some
Yes.
materials.
Yes.
There may be some additional ones.
Okay.
Kathy was on one of the subcommittees in cost savings. I don't know if you
Okay.
have all.
This came out of the archives, right? Right?
Out of my computer. But what it does is it becomes efficient if I have copies of all of that stuff. And so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can start
Absolutely.
over. There's a lot of things that over the years that we didn't do 10 years ago, but they have been implemented. So you can
Okay.
see that there were cost savings, not that Paul had the list.
Maybe we'll have you as a guest speaker. Okay?
I'm certainly sure, Kathy was part of the subcommittee.
Okay.
But I had the documents, and then there's also a spreadsheet where it divides it out.
I think we're having a leadership meeting next week, I believe.
I don't know, I have some other additional documents I don't think that I had sent to Mike, so
Okay, good.
if that's something that the committee wants to take a look at,
Thank you.
I can just make sure that you have all the documents.
I'll share them with everybody.
Right, and I think that, well, see what I had sent him, there's a couple of other ones that I don't think I sent him, just so that you have, everybody's got all the same materials going forward, taking a look at, because there's some interesting things on the list.
Okay.
Now, Paul should also look at his departments for efficiency also,
The list she had was online.
Everybody, the whole town.
the whole time.
This is a whole
Yes.
town. This is a,
Yeah, 10 years ago when we had a financial crisis, it's like
Crisis,
every year we have one and concerns. But I mean, we had it serious enough, and one of the suggestions that was on there was about closing Westland School in order to try to meet the budget if we didn't have a successful override. But the finance committee, the school committee, and the board of selectmen met at the senior center, and everybody brainstormed. And then with the list that was generated, then there were representatives from each of the three boards to go to the subcommittees to take and think about and evaluate whether or not they were actually worth doing, and if they weren't, why. And so you have the minutes from the cost savings and the revenue generating committees respectively. And then what Kevin Porter, who was also on the school committee at the time, did was he created a spreadsheet. Spreadsheet listed everything and then put it, so that if you wanted to start checking things off, because some people think in terms of lists versus, a narrative.
yeah.
So that's also there, so that you can see the whole list of items. We even, we put townwide ambulance on it, obviously we've had studies on that wasn't something, but it was something that you put there because it potentially could be revenue generating, and then the different committees then, like I said, evaluated whatever it was that was on it. So that's what happened
Okay.
10 years ago. And it's something that if you have, a long-range plan or goals or something with your committee.
It's a valuable document. It really is. yeah.
Is to, every 5 to 10 years, we should be doing something like that anyway.
Update it, yeah.
Evaluating what all the things are that we're doing,
Yeah.
to see if there's anything that we can do better.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you, Evan. Okay. I have one question, Paul. The $660,000 that is short right now in the budget for the school, where is that going to come from? Right. Yeah, where's that going to come from? Do we know?
Yes,
Okay.
we have $500,000 in our
Circuit, right, yeah.
And there's also $200,000 in our school choice.
Okay, so that's going to take care of it then? Okay.
And that would be the buffer that we were talking about?
Yeah.
That's right, that's the buffer that we established that you established, I should say,
Right.
when the tri-boards met before the
Okay.
town meeting.
Just wanted to clarify that.
So
Thank
the
you very
buffer
much.
worked. How about that?
Right, the buffer worked, right.
And I would assume next year's buffer is next year's school choice money, plus the additional 21 people that are coming in.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
$100,000
Yeah.
beyond that.
It's probably a good practice to use, for the future. Okay, any more comments? No more comments. Okay, well, thank you all very much. I appreciate everybody coming. I appreciate the members of the school committee coming as well. Thank you very much, and do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Didn't work.